So here we are, back in the slightly echoey conservatory. If we've not met, then my name is Becca, and here I like to share lots of lovely fibre arts and related crafts for you to try at home. And today's little item is a pumpkin, a knitted pumpkin. And I'm actually going to spin the yarn for the next one in the series. This is a very, very simple pattern. It's on Ravelry, and I will link it in the description below. Basically, you've got a rib in a I have got another. Okay, so there we go. So it is a rib. You leave yourself a long tail and stitch it together. I mean, you can also knit it in the round. I just prefer knitting straight, and then sort of gather up the bits, stuff it, push this through. I'll show you in a minute, but basically kind of push the long bit through here, do the same at the top, you have a pumpkin. And then this is an I-cord. So I've been very converted to the idea of creating seasonal decor for your home. And I was saying in my last video, it's not really something we've sort of done as Brits. I think we quite often we'll decorate for Christmas. If somebody's having a birthday party, we might decorate for that, but we don't really decorate seasonally, or certainly we haven't. I think that's changing. I think people have seen how fun it is in sort of videos and kind of things that we see from particularly America. I don't know if it's something that's done in other parts of the world. You'll have to let me know in the comments if it is, but I thought it would be a super fun thing to do. So I have changed the colour of my table runner. I have put out a lovely bowl of colourful sweet peppers that were gifted to me by my parents when they were visiting. And we are, of course, going to eat those. So I thought it would be super fun to have some knitted vegetables to put in the bowl as we kind of eat not the pumpkins, as we eat the peppers down, which we're going to do fairly quickly. Then I want something to replace them. So I'm going to knit little pumpkins of different sizes and colours and pop them in the bowl, and that's going to be part of my autumn decoration. So as a kid growing up in the 70s and 80s, I mean, really, pumpkins were just not a thing. I mean, they were really unusual. They were an American thing, and we didn't really have them in this country. A few people grew them maybe on their allotments if they were very adventurous, but it was not really something that we did. And I've probably told this tale before, but I'm going to tell it again anyway. I have a really, really vivid memory of carving a Halloween lantern, and the dog has started barking. Hang on a moment. So the dog has seen off the post lady. Well, I mean, not literally, because the post lady is not frightened of her. Post lady has 3 big Alsatians of her own. She is not bothered by a little Jack Russell cross mystery breed. So, right, what was I talking about? Yes, so we didn't have jack-o'-lanterns, we didn't have pumpkins to carve. So at Halloween, depending on where you lived and what part of the country you lived in, then you would have some kind of root vegetable to carve and turn into a lantern. So like a big turnip or a mangel or a swede. And when I was quite a little girl, we were living over in the southeast for only quite a short period of time. I mean, we kind of moved where my dad's work was. And for anybody that remembers that period of time, sort of late 70s, in the construction industry in this country, basically you moved where the work was. So we were kind of over in the southeast, and we carved out sugar beet. So these kind of big sugar beets, carved them out, put your little candle in them, and that was your Halloween lantern. Now, of course, those jack-o'-lantern pumpkins, they're everywhere and they're so cheap in the supermarket. But rather than having a kind of supermarket one, I'm having little knitted ones. And I'm going to have great fun creating a yarn that's going to be all variegated, because I've got quite a lot of bits and pieces of yarn that I'm using. I mean, you only need quite a small amount, and you know, pumpkins and squashes come in all shapes and colours and sizes, and I want to do one that's kind of got a variegated skin. So if you are a new hand spinner and maybe you are not kind of creating the most consistent yarns in the world, then this is a perfect project to use some of your early hand spun, or your kind of, because I mean you will get better, but if you're kind of a little bit lumpy bumpy at the moment, lovely little project to use up your first hand spun. You can keep it, and then in a few months' time you'll be able to look back and go, oh yes, I have got better, because you'll have a sort of a little permanent record, and you'll go, yeah, I don't make lumpy bumpy yarn anymore. So what am I going to do? I have got down here some things I have pulled out of the stash that are kind of autumnal colours. So oranges and browns and some yellows, and there you go, really vivid lime green. I really don't know where that came from. And this, I think, was dyed with marigold. This one, oh, I can't remember what this was. Oh, I know, yarrow. This is yarrow. And that is just from a bag of mill ends. And I think most of this, do you know what? That's probably where this came from. So this is a mixture of mill ends and my natural dyeing. And so I'm going to get the blending board out, blend up a bat, and then we're going to spin it. And I had been asked a couple of questions about ratios and tension and yarn thickness. So I thought what I would do is, while I'm spinning that up, just try and give you an explanation as to how you use your break and your whirl and your speed of treadling to get the yarn that you want. Sounds quite ambitious. We'll see how it goes. Anyway, I'm going to get the blending board out and let's make some fun autumn coloured yarn. So my plan with this is just to kind of do a few stripes of different colour. And then, rather than pulling it off as rolags, actually just lift the whole thing off as a bat and spin chunks. So I think that will mix the colours up a bit. And because we only need a very small amount of yarn, I think this is a great project for a bit of experimenting. Some of this is definitely designed for felting rather than spinning, because this came from World of Wool in one of their mill end type things. This is my naturally dyed at home, so probably, looking at it, it is from the Welsh mule that I get locally in Cardigan from the Cambrian Wool Co-op, and I will link their details in the description. So as I say, I'm not being very scientific with this at all. I'm just kind of seeing how the colours take me. Now, I want quite a bulky sort of yarn, because I've got some Aran weight, I've got some DK weight, and I've got some fingering weight yarn in my stash, but I haven't got a bulky weight yarn. Now, I don't know whether you can hear my little dog barking again. There are loads and loads of goldfinches on the bird feeders, and she is so cross with them because they are invading her garden. And so Andrew is outside with her, but she is being blimmin' noisy. I'm going to take her for another big walk when I've done this, because she needs to blow off a bit of steam. She really doesn't do rain, and of course we've had weeks and weeks of lots of rain, and she is just about ready to burst. She is so fed up with not going out. I mean, I take her out, but she plants herself in the middle of the street and refuses to move. And there is a point at which you're kind of trying to drag a dog down the road by the lead, which is just not a good thing to do. So we end up going for quite short walks when it's raining. So this is kind of looking quite fun. Let's have a bit of yellow in there as well. Now, of course, you could take this off as Rolex. You could take it off, blend it a bit more to get a more of a sort of homogenized sort of color. But I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to fill up the tines a little bit more. Do another blending board full. So I've got 2 different bats to spin. So I've got 2 singles which I can ply together and make a bulky yarn, or a bulkier yarn. I'm not sure how bulky it's going to be. Right, I now have to go and have serious words with this barking dog. So I will leave it here and come back to you when I have got a couple of bats made up. Right, so literally I'm just going to do that and spin that. So, right, bit of dog discipline required now, I think. Stern words. Okay, so I've got the wheel set up this way so you can see what my hands are doing. First thing I'm going to think about is the fact that I want quite a bulky yarn. Just going to kind of split these into chunks. And I've got about 20 grams of fibre in total, which is, well, if an ounce is 28 grams, oh dear, now I'm dropping fibre all over the place. Right, so an ounce is 28 grams, so it's less than an ounce in total of the two bats. And, oh, bit of VM, pick that out. Okay, so I want a bulky yarn, so I'm going to use the bigger of my whorls. This is a 1980s Ashford traditional, so I have 2 whorls. And if you think about your whorls and the ratio of your whorls as your gearing system, so they're like the gears in a car. If you want a bulky yarn or a fat yarn, use your fat whorl or your bulky whorl. One of the other things people find really challenging about spinning is twist. And how much twist do you need? Basically, you only need as much twist as it takes to hold the fibre together in a yarn. So this is untwisted and I can pull it apart. So as soon as I put some twist in it, I can't pull it apart. So if you've got quite a lot of fibre, so it's quite a lot of fibre, I only need a very small amount of twist before I can't pull it apart. But if I've got like a really thin bit of fibre, then I'm going to need more twist to hold it together. So the challenge comes when you're trying to keep that in your mind and you're treadling and, you know, you're kind of trying to keep it all going. So I kind of like to, as I say, chunk my fibre down. And I have a very scrappy leader. I always have scrappy leaders because I'm a scrappy kind of person. Now the next thing is tension or break. And this is Scotch tension, which is what you get on an Ashford traditional. And I'm single drive. I hope all that makes sense. So, right, what are we going to do? We don't need much twist. So we need a fairly quick take up. So we're going to have a fair amount of tension on the brake. So when we treadle, it gets taken up onto the bobbin quite quickly. But it's a kind of case of just kind of figuring it out. And really don't treadle too quickly. If you treadle quickly, you totally lose control. And I'm just going to loosen off the tension a bit because that was a bit fierce. My take up was a little bit fierce. So although it's kind of holding together, it's only just holding together. So I want a little bit more twist on that. So I want to turn, I've turned this down a bit so there's not as much tension on this brake as there was when I started. And we'll just see how that goes. And because I want it quite bulky, I'm not worrying too much about slubs going through because it's going to kind of be fun to have a bit of lumpy bumpiness going on, bit of unevenness, because we're creating the texture of pumpkin skin or squash skin, and it's not smooth, is it? It's got indentations to it, it's got bumps on it, the colours vary. So we're just kind of creating a fun yarn, and I don't want it too fine, so I'm not drafting it out too much. And I'm sort of letting the twist run into my drafting triangle. And it's a little bit thick and thin, but I want a bit more twist in there again, so I'm just loosening off the brake a little bit so I've not got quite so much tension. Got no tension at all if I take it off. And I think you mustn't be afraid to just play around and get it the way you want it, and sort of just go up and down with the brake until you get the amount of twist that you want. And I always say at this point, I'm not a particularly technical spinner. There are some really, really experienced, quite technical spinners. I mean, artistic as well, but so Evie on the Julian Eve channel, she's a very precise spinner. And Beck's Tiny Fibre Studio, she's a very precise spinner. I am not a particularly precise spinner. It doesn't really float my boat. I'd much rather just play with colour and texture and, kind of not worry too much about whether I've let a slub through or whether I've got completely even yarn. Just doesn't bother me. But I like to be able to make the yarn I want to use. And my philosophy is that as long as you're making the yarn you want to use, does it kind of matter how you got there? So let's just have a look at the tension, and we just test our tension by going back and doing what we call a ply back test. And there you go. So how is that plying back on itself? And that's fine. I might turn up the tension a little bit just so there's not quite so much twist going in. But it is trial and error and practice. Fibre prep is really important as well. And, I was a bit haphazard with this. I just kind of slapped it on and not worrying too much about it. Again, because I don't particularly want an uber kind of smooth and consistent yarn. I want a bit of character in there. And also some of this fibre is quite short and some of it is quite long, as in the staple length. Oh, and there's a bit of VM in here as well. Of course there is, because, you know, sheep, hedges, they can't help themselves, sheep. They just have to bring half the hedgerow with them every time they go out in a field. This is said with feeling. I used to really help my friend out with his sheep, and yeah, sheep and hedges. So when I met Andrew and we decided that we were going to sort of have this food and farming business, and we were going to kind of trade at the farmers markets, and we were going to keep animals, Andrew said to me, "You can have any animal you like apart from sheep." And I was a little bit horrified because I had experience with sheep and obviously hand spinner. And I was like, why? Why is this? He says, "I spent every summer holiday from the age of 10 to 16 pulling bleep, bleep, bleep sheep out of hedges and ditches on my grandfather's farm in Carmarthenshire. I have no wish to repeat that experience." So, to cut a long story short, I just helped my friend out with his sheep, and we did not keep sheep. And I think he was probably right, in all honesty, because much as I like spinning sheep's wool, actually the process of being a shepherd was not going to be for me. I'm just making a simple 2-ply, and it's coming together quite nicely. I'm really enjoying the process, which I guess is the main thing. Well, as if by magic, ta-da! So there's my little bit of yarn left, and I've just knitted up a little bit of rib with a nice big long tail. And I've also just filmed how I put it together with this one, with this little one. So I'm going to drop that in so you can see how I did that. And then I'm going to go away and do the same with this, and I will let you see that when I've finished. If I'd knitted in the round, I wouldn't need to do this stage. I'm just sewing a side seam, and I sort of decided which side of the rib I wanted to show on the outside, and I think that's absolutely personal choice. And, you know, it's just a tapestry needle, very quick, very simple, nothing very technical about it, but nice secure stitches because it's going to be under a little bit of tension. The next stage is to do a simple gather, and that's just a quick running stitch along the edge, and I'm going to pull that nice and tight, so you're sort of closing it up almost like you're making a little mini hat for your pumpkin bottom. Does that make sense? I think it makes sense. It'll become clear as I show you. Now I've just about finished my stitches, and I pull it nice and tight, turn it inside out, and you can see I've got a little beanie. Then back through with the needle, because this is quite important, because you actually want to kind of pull the middle of your pumpkin quite taut. I'm then stuffing it with a bit of random wool that, you know, I don't exactly have a shortage of. And this stuff is actually dyed with dahlias, but it wasn't a very nice quality of wool. I think it was just an experiment, so I'm quite happy to use it as stuffing. Now, next thing, needle back through. I'm just putting some stitches in just to keep it secure, but we're just going back up through the stuffing, out the other side. And then the next thing is we're going to gather the top in the same way as we did the bottom. So just running stitch around it and then pull it up tight. And then we've got a nice little sort of cushion made that's going to be the body of the pumpkin. So I secure my stitches again, and then I'm going to go back through. So I'm kind of pulling it tight, so you've been through the top and the bottom of the pumpkin a couple of times, and this is going to become clear as to why I'm going to do this, because we are going to attach our little stem to this side, because this is now going to be the top of the pumpkin. So the next task is to make a little I-cord, and I'm using a green that has been dyed with peppermint and iron, so it's quite a sort of greyish green, and it works really well as a little stem. And I'm also leaving a little tail, because quite often on your pumpkins you get a little curly bit of the vine that's still attached to the stem of your pumpkin. And so I literally, I think I did 4 stitches and then kind of, I don't know, just knitted until it felt like just about the right size. Then still with our long tail that was attached in the orange, so that's why we had such a long tail, we're just going to sew that in again to that, right to that centre, and just keep it nice and tight so that we're securing the stem to the centre of the pumpkin. I am then going back through the whole body of the pumpkin, so I'm pulling it tight so it's all kind of squished together and secured in that middle, so you've got that slightly sort of indented look that you get with a pumpkin at the bottom and the top. I experimented a little bit and I've just found that this worked for me. I am going to link the full Ravelry pattern so that you can see exactly the way it was written, and I've just sort of adapted it to suit my needs. And sometime later we have this one, and you can just see how it kind of looks like it's got a knobbly kind of skin and the colours are really varied. I think you can have so much fun with this. So I am absolutely delighted with these, and I'm going to create a whole load as part of my autumn decor, and they're going to go in a bowl on the table and kind of look like little pumpkins. So until next time, fibre friend, treadle your own path.